Hello, hello, hello.
Hello.
Is our
Hi.
group just dwindling away? Have I scared everybody off?
I don't think so.
Well, I don't know.
It's only 6:01.
This is true, and I'm usually not on time. Let's face facts. Let me just make sure. So, do you guys have any questions?
We're on group today, right?
Did we finish theorist?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you guys studied together this week?
No, we usually study on Thursdays.
And did you hear from anybody? We didn't meet last week, so.
Well, we did. We met on Friday. Well, at least I met with you on Friday.
Yes. Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Janetta, are you feeling any better? Side
Yes.
note.
Thank
Yeah.
you for yes, much better. But the stomach bug is going around my job and COVID and strep and some type of like respiratory flu type thing. So I'm
How long
trying.
have you been in the school system?
I'm sorry.
How long have you been in the school system?
This is my 5th year.
Oh my goodness, you should be like immune to everything by now.
Good.
If you survived COVID, you should not ever have to get sick again.
What's your work like that?
Just saying.
I really wish.
Hello, hello. We're just kind of waiting a few minutes for everyone to get started here. So as everybody rolls in, hope you guys are able to go back and watch Friday's video. I do apologize for my tardiness last week. So other questions? I'm waiting for people that are joining in. We're gonna go to groups and kind of what it looked like. What did I do on Friday?
Questions.
Questions. Did I go from family to, did I go from group? Did I go from theorist to family theorist?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Making sure I covered family theorist. Okay. So Dee and Jen, were you able to go back and watch the videos? Do you have any questions on the videos? We've kind of gone over the questions, the things, anything at like? Love it when we have such an interactive group. So Emily, how was your day?
How was my day? It was good.
What did it look like?
I actually was sick last night, so I was just recovering today. I've been having a lot of like stomach issues due to the COVID shot. It actually messed up my stomach for the fact I can't process food. So I'm gonna have to go and get a procedure done.
Whoa,
So
whoa,
sometimes
whoa, 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 let's back up. Let's back up. So this is like post-COVID symptoms?
So I got it from the shots. I've never had COVID.
Okay, so this is post-COVID shot symptoms.
Yeah.
Did you have any underlying,
okay.
Did you have underlying issues prior to COVID?
I have had stomach issues in the past. But a lot of it just was a stomach ulcer. It was very easy to treat.
Okay.
But this is totally new symptoms.
So then we go through COVID. You had like 3 vaccines, 4?
Yeah, I had 4 vaccines.
Okay, and then you later on, now we're past COVID, and you began to get sick.
Yeah.
And then how do they relate that to then the actual vaccine?
Well, I did an endoscopy and they said that they've seen this occur a lot with people who've had respiratory viruses, especially in women around my age. So that's kind of how they connected that.
Wow, wow, wow. So you can say none of my business, you know that at any point in this conversation. So then what are they going to have to do?
So they're gonna have to do a gastric imaging study. So basically they put like this chemical in the food and I eat it and I have to wait of several hours and then they take me and image me and see where the food is going. And if I can't, like the whole problem is I can't like dissolve the food, my body won't dissolve the food. And if it's still like that's still the problem, then they're gonna have to go in and reopen my stomach again. Because that's what they did the last.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So like you can't poop. It's a liquid. You can say none of my business. I'm just gonna keep asking questions, okay? It's
My parents are doctors, so this doesn't scares me.
okay, so we can't poop. It's liquid poop. It doesn't go anywhere. It just sits in your stomach, like your body's not absorbing the nutrients.
The food just sits in my stomach.
Oh my goodness. So then have you like lost lots of weight?
I have. In December, I was like around 100 pounds, and now I'm about 80 pounds.
Oh my gosh. That's like life-threatening.
Yeah, I'm really thin. So I get cold.
I'm just gonna like say it as if like oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Probably why you see me in all these hoodies. Like it's Texas, so it's been like 105 outside, but like I get really cold, so I'm like wearing all these hoodies because of like all this health stuff.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
And my dietary is very restrict. I can have fish, chicken, bread, pasta, potatoes. That's it.
So the fat and butter, things like that, just don't go. Very bland, very. Oh
yeah, it's been like that since last December. It's hard to eat the same things for several months.
Do you have energy?
Sometimes I'm just really tired.
I'm just thinking, I mean, that's what food does. It gives us like energy and it just, wow. Oh, wow. I am so sorry. I am so sorry. Are doctors doing like research? Will I like read about this case? Not that I'm ever doing like medical research, but honestly, it seems very rare.
They are doing research apparently, like my doctor, because he asked if I had COVID and I was like, no, but I had the shots. And then he said like that they've seen a lot of people in their like early 20s, late 30s who didn't have any of these problems. And then they got the COVID shot and these problems started to occur.
It's giving you the COVID shot is giving you a little bit of the COVID. Yeah. Wow. 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 I am so sorry. I am so sorry. So this will be the second time if they have to open up your stomach.
Yeah.
I have lots of thoughts, like like liquid IVs, like feeding you through a feeding tube. Those are like thoughts that are going through my head. That still goes through the stomach though, right?
I haven't had any feeding tubes and stuff like that.
Okay.
They did an endoscopy, and when they did the endoscopy, they like opened up my stomach that way.
Oh, gotcha. Wow, I am so sorry. So very sorry. Very, very sorry. Wow. I will keep asking questions. Sorry, but I will. You can say none of your business at any point in this conversation. No.
Not phased. Like it doesn't really faze me. Like my families are doctors, so it's like a normal conversation.
Well, yeah. So, yeah.
For some people,
Oh,
it's strange. For me, it's just like, oh, because my dad's a pulmonologist, so.
okay. So, and I'm assuming your dad thought the COVID shot was great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he did.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That was like, let's do this. So, wow. Oh,
And my mom's like very high risk because she has an autoimmune disease, so like I kind of had to get the shot to be around my mom. But so yeah, so it was kind of like not a win-win situation.
got it. And remind me, what do you do again?
Currently, I'm not doing anything. I'm taking care of my mom.
Yes.
Yeah.
Currently, you're not employed outside the home.
Yes.
Okay, so being a caregiver is a full-time job. So currently, you are not employed outside that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. I really appreciate that. I just, I like to know people. I like to know what makes them tick, and I think, that's why I love my job. I get to meet so many people and just kind of hear their stories and who they are, and that's who you are. That's part of your story. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so it looks like this is all we're getting. Again, have we talked to other people? Have we heard other people? Do I need to reach out to them to see if they've dropped off the face of the earth? No. Okay. Okay, so we've talked about theorists and we talked about family theorists, and we're going to take that into group settings. So Dee and Jen, do you have any questions that you'd like me to go over before I continue talking?
No, not at this time.
How about you, Jen? You're very quiet.
Because I'm at work and I'm connected. So they let me connect so that I'm just
Gotcha. There's a reason why you're very quiet. We do not want you to lose your job. That is not our goal at all.
yeah, no. I'm gonna disconnect in a little bit, but then I'll reconnect once I'm on the van, once I'm off site.
Understood. Okay, so let me just I just want to go back over some questions just to kind of bring us up and make sure that we understand when it comes to the theorists, what we're looking at, and especially also our family theorists. Before we get into groups, I just want to see.
Quick question about Virginia Satir really fast. Just more about like her technique. Like she was very into like play therapy, right?
She was, but I haven't seen a lot of questions about that. You'll see more about the roles that people played, the placater, the scapegoat, the things like that. And also knowing that she's a humanist. That means that she really put people first. A lot of her research was done on alcoholic and children of alcoholics at the time. So adult children of alcoholics is where her research first started. And one of my favorites here, so I remember learning about her in school many thousands of years ago, when I was in school. And just brought that feminine touch of caring about people, which we haven't seen a lot before. Okay, you see my screen? Okay. Jeanette, do you want to take this one for me?
Sure. The main focus for intervention in a family therapy session is on A, major events in the family's history, B, future goals the family might have, C, the parent-child relationship. D, the current interactions between family members. The main focus for intervention in a family therapy session is on. I am going to eliminate B as in boy. I'm also going to eliminate B. I said B, I'm sorry. C as in cat.
I like that one too. Let's take that one out. Now you're down to A and D.
A.
Okay. So how is A different than D?
Anything what stuck out to me was the word major.
Okay. Okay. So major events in the family's history. So usually that's a crisis, right? So it doesn't say it's a good or bad event. It just says major events.
Okay.
So when families come to therapy, is it because we had a new baby or someone got a divorce? Is that the main reason that brings them?
I would say yes.
So
That-
most often in families, it's because the school keeps calling, this little Bobby won't behave. I can't leave my job one more time because the little Bobby just won't behave. So most often I'm not seeing that major events, it's what's happening here and now.
Okay.
Okay. So most often families come to therapy because of the way the children are behaving. If it were the couple, right, then they would come to couples therapy. But they often come to therapy because one of those children has done something and they're blaming each other. It's your fault, it's your fault, it's your fault. So that's what brings them to family therapy. The nice to just drop off their child and you fix it. But we know there's no IP, right? There's no identified patient. There's no little Bobby. It's just being, a bad kid. Okay, most of the time that's not the case. We do have some children that have behavior problems, but that would definitely not be the majority of kids we see in practice. It is they're acting out with something that's happened in the family. Okay, make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Emily?
The following is not a direct benefit of empathic verbal and nonverbal communication. A, boosts client treatment compliance. B, build rapport with clients. C, diffuses anger in clients. C, engages a client in processing.
Okay, so I love these not questions. So that means 3 of these are direct benefits of empathic, verbal, and nonverbal. So what makes empathy different than sympathy? Anybody? When I think of empathy, very specifically, I think of Carl Rogers, okay? So your friends feel sorry for you. Your friends are like, wow, I'm so sorry this happened to you. Our clients that need empathy are clients that have most often made some pretty sucky choices, right? I left my kid in the car. I had an affair. I I stole from my parents. I mean, some stuff that most of their friends are like, nah, I'm done with you, right? So empathy allows us to understand at that time why that decision made sense to them. It's putting ourselves in that client's shoes at that time. So while I don't have to agree with their behavior, but I understand when they made that decision to rob the store, or when they made the decision to, take grandma's Social Security check to, go buy whatever, at that time, it made sense to them. Okay, so empathetic understanding is I can put myself in your shoes that, okay, that makes sense to you. Okay, so very different from sympathy. Okay, so 3 of these are benefits, 1 is not.
So I'm going to take away A and C.
Okay, so A and C are benefits.
No, they're not benefits.
They're
Oh,
not benefits. Okay, so, okay.
I think the answer is D.
Engages a client in processing. So why did you pick D over anything else? Then as my not.
Because I think like you non-verbally you can empathize with the client during the during the process of, I just realized I'm adding more to the question, which you tell me not to do because you're like always.
All I got, that's
always
all I got is the line. That's all I got is those two lines. And it asked me, and when it says a direct benefit, it also means an obvious benefit. So the other one could be an indirect benefit. But what is an obvious benefit?
Well, I feel like the obvious benefit is D when you're engaging in a client, like when you're engaged with your client. Oh, boost client treatment. Okay.
Okay. So then, empathy in itself won't necessarily make any client more compliant, but it does help establish that relationship. Okay. So when I come to you and I tell you, oh, by the way, you know what, I molested my neighbor's, 6-year-old. And you say to me, your face doesn't show, right? You actually, hey, probably, oops, it happened to me probably, right? Because I only just wake up one day and go start molesting my neighbor's 6-year-old. So it's going to help me build rapport with you. It's going to diffuse some of my anger because, because I have to tell you this stuff, and especially if somebody made me come to therapy. Okay, but it won't necessarily boost my compliance. I still may molest again. Sorry. Okay, tough question. Tough question. I can see that. Okay. Jen, can you read? If not, I can just read it and you can just answer. Okay. You're working with Landon, a 16-year-old gay male who's in the process of coming out to his friends and family. During this time, you should consider all of the following except. So remember, when I'm looking at these questions, I'm trying to figure out what they're measuring. So this one might be under the diversity section. It might be under normal human development. What we do know in general is when adolescents especially are coming out, we know there's a much higher incidence of suicide in our adolescents, early 20s, when people are a member of the LGBT community. Right. So A, recognize that it's an accept question. So I didn't remember that. And sometimes accept is not capitalized on the test. So A, recognize that coming out can coincide with suicidal ideations. B, recognize that coming out is inherently unique for each individual, each client. C, recognize that coming out inherently currently entails significant challenges. Or D, recognize that coming out may create ongoing stress. So three of these things are true. One of these is not. One of those accept questions, again, I usually struggle with those, so I try to do which three are true and which one is not true. And Jen, if you want to type in the chat box, that's easier for you. I can't hear you. You guys hear me? Put in the chat box if you want to. Can't hear you.
She put
There
A.
is the answer. So it's an except question. So 3 of these things are true and 1 is not. Okay. So then A is true. A is that definitely there is a increase in suicide with kids. Okay. Okay. B, recognize that it is it's inherently unique for each individual. Everybody comes out differently. C, recognizing that coming out inherently entails significant challenges. Not for everybody. Not for everybody. So when I look at that, for a lot of people, it can be, but not for everybody. With some people, it's the parents are like, well, it took you long enough to tell me, right? You know, I birthed you. Okay, so these accept questions to me are always hard. Okay, because 3 of these are right. So recognizing that it may be an ongoing stress. B, recognizing that it's inherently unique for each client. And A, recognizing that it can coincide with suicidal ideations. Those are true things. Okay, the one that's not is going to be the last one. I mean, the first one. Okay. Okay. So this is definitely one of my family questions. I recognize the language. Which best describes incongruent hierarchy in a family system? Now, I think I talked on Friday that in all of our family theorists, no matter who we use, whether it's structure, strategic, Whitaker, genogram, it doesn't matter. Mom and dad are always in charge. There is not any family system that says kids are all equal. Okay, even adult kids, right? If your adult kids are living at home, you probably need to move out or pay your own bills. There's nowhere does it say they're equal. So then, what best defines incongruent hierarchy in a family? So congruency means it matches, right? Congruency means what's coming out of my mouth matches my body. When it doesn't match, when we talk about careers, we'll talk about trait and factor, right? If you know about yourself and know about the job, they should match. That's congruency. What's his name? Carl Rogers said, genuineness is congruency, right? It matches. When my facial features match what I say to the client, that his term for that was congruency. So this question asks me, which is incongruent? Which one does not match? So which best defines an incongruent hierarchy in family systems? Well, Davida, you came in at the right time.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. How are you all?
I am good.
Am I attempting to answer this question?
Yes. Erica,
Okay.
we are covering group, but right now we're just going back and doing some questions on family therapy and some theories before we get to group. Okay.
So the key word in the question would be incongruent. So ruling out, I would rule
Read all 4
out.
for me. Read all 4.
I apologize. A, evidence that family members are disconnected and disengaged. B, evidence that family members often say one thing but mean another. C, evidence that family members do not act in age-appropriate ways. D, evidence that family members abuse each other. So I would rule out A and D. and which will leave me with B and C. Evidence, family members saying one thing, but meaning another, definitely be incongruent, but with and not acting in age appropriate ways. So focusing on the word best. No, both of those I think are applicable. Family systems. C, they're not acting in age appropriate ways. Okay.
So I'm the mother. Okay. If I start acting like the teenager, then that's not a congruent hierarchy, right?
Right.
Mom and dad are, and we're assuming mom and dad are older than children, right? We're just assuming that they're
Right,
older than
right.
the children. Okay, so that's the rule. So if a teenager or comes home and their job is to cook dinner, and mom and dad are over there getting high, that is not the hierarchy of the family should behave. Okay. B, evidence that the family members say one thing and mean another. That term belongs to strategic family therapy. What's that called? If I give you mixed messages?
It's
Double
Double bind?
Double bind, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Who does A belong to? Family members are disconnected and disengaged. What theorists use those terms? Those are boundaries. Not strategic, but structural. Thank you, Janetta. Yes, that's the terms that structural family would use, right? It talks about the boundaries, disengagement. Those are the key words that let me know that what theory that meant. Okay. All of the following are key components of structural family therapy, except. Okay, so structural family therapy again. So mom and dad, so it doesn't matter that mom and dad are always in charge of anyone, but I gave you some of the words that belong to structural family therapy. So D, this is yours.
All the following, let's see. So A is family systems are largely governed around established rules and patterns. B, families often abide by covert and overt rules. C, family systems benefit from having an effective hierarchical structure. And D, family problems are often maintained through multi-generational patterns. All of the following are key concepts of structural family.
So I'm looking for terms that specifically belong to structural family therapy, and one of these does not. So B, overt and covert rules. So give me an example, anybody, of a very clear rule in your house when you were growing up. What's a very clear rule?
Making my bed up.
Okay, making your bed. Okay, give me, Davida, you're going to say something? A very clear rule. Somebody else said something.
No, I think it was D.
Yeah, being in the house before the street lights come on.
Okay, very overt rules, very clear. Covert rules are rules that are not necessarily written down, but rules we know better. So covert means, I was thinking of like covert ops, like, in the military, they go in, they do things underneath and we don't see. So give an example of a covert rule in your house growing up that wasn't necessarily said, but you knew better.
Talking back.
Talking back. Erica, you said something, your lips were moving. You're muted.
No sex.
No sex. Oh, that was an overt rule in my house. But no hidden. Okay.
Wasn't necessarily written, but we knew it.
Okay, exactly. So that's what covert rules are. Okay, so just make sure whenever you see those terms, other places, overt or obvious, covert are the rules that, and one of the things, especially we talked about Carl Whitaker, he was looking for those covert rules. He was looking for the rules that we may not have said, but you wouldn't know unless you lived in my house, that was one of the rules. Okay, so then 3 of these are, 1 is not.
Key component structure.
Here is.
I would rule out.
Let's go through.
C and
Family
D.
Okay, so B and which one?
C and D is in
C
Delta.
and D are both definitely, or I'm keeping.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh,
Davida, you shook your head yes. Why is that the right answer?
Because structural is dealing with, I guess, the creating of subsystems within the family. So I would
And the
think that would.
boundaries and the hierarchy. Who does D belong to?
Strategic.
Bowen.
That mean Bowen,
Is that
that mean
Bowen?
teacher that made you do
Oh,
your
geez.
genogram.
Mm.
So whenever I see multi-generational patterns, that means the genogram. Okay. What there's some structural components to the genogram? Yes, there were, but this is where I really have to know the language. Whenever it says multi-generational, that is not what a structural family therapist talked about. He only talked about the structure in your immediate home. So knowing the verbiage of the theorist is what's going to save us in these questions. Okay, Bowen is multi-generational. Okay, so structural therapists did talk about family systems are largely governed by rules and patterns, sometimes not healthy rules and patterns, right? Boundaries weren't always so clear. Families abide by overt and covert rules, and family systems benefit from having an effective hierarchical structure. The one that he specifically didn't say was multi-generational because that belongs to Bowen. Okay, so again, tying the verbiage with the theorist is that important. So that's what we're trying to do over and over and over again. When you watch the videos, when you do your note cards, remember it's a routine. So whenever I see multi-generational, ding, 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 Bowen goes off. Okay, so we're not trying to think that hard. We're just trying to know them well enough to know, right, what it can and cannot be. Okay, Erica, this is a code of ethics question. You got this one?
When it comes to a therapist's responsibility to research participants, which of the following is true about participants withdrawing from a study? It is appropriate unless signing a contract that states otherwise. It is only appropriate after consulting with the researchers. It is appropriate at any time and for any reason. It is never appropriate after the research has been initiated.
Was asking me about research, right? I've got these participants in my research, and which of the following is true about them withdrawing? So I know definitely that 3 are not true. 1 is definitely true. So rule out 2 that are not true.
B
Okay.
and E.
Okay, between A and C. Which one of those is true?
is true. C.
Absolutely. Anything I'm involved in, I have the right to withdraw my informed consent at any time. Right? I can be in therapy with you tomorrow and decide I want to change my mind.
Mhm.
Okay, you might see a question about a student that's in your class and you're a teacher, and part of that their class grade will say part of the research. If he withdraws, if it's part of the research, I have to give an alternative assignment. Right? Code of ethics. You have the right to withdraw your informed consent at any time. Okay. Back to you. I think everybody got a turn. Yeah, I'm back to you, Janetta.
Chris and Mary have been married for 6 years and are entering couples therapy with Patrice, a marriage and family therapist. Mary
You can
states
put
that
counselor in there if it makes you feel better. Go ahead.
Mary states that she is concerned about Chris's drinking. Chris insists that Mary is overreacting and that he drinks occasionally to decompress after work. Patrice conducts a more thorough assessment of Chris's drinking and realizes he meets the criteria for alcohol use disorder. At this point, Patrice should do what next? A, refer Chris to AA. B, can you move it up a little bit?
And I can.
B, assess Mary's drinking habits to see if she also meets the criteria for alcohol use disorder. C, refer Chris for individual alcohol treatment. Or D, require that Chris maintain abstinence for the duration of couples therapy. I am
Understand
going
the question.
ma'am,
Make sure you understand the question, what's happening in the question.
is asking what should the therapist do in counseling with Chris and Mary. Chris doesn't feel like he has a drinking problem, but Mary does. I am going to eliminate. Can you move it up? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm going to eliminate B as in boy.
Okay.
I'm going to eliminate D as in dog.
Now I'm between A and C.
Mm. Is it AA? And no, AA is like a group meeting, right?
It
Where you
is.
meet together? Okay.
So it's really a matter of which would get the better results,
Okay, well,
AA or individual alcohol treatment.
I'm gonna pick C.
You are. Okay, and that's just a matter of which would get, so AA, he may or may not show up, at least with individual alcohol treatment. I can, if he signs release, I can follow up with a therapist to make sure that he followed it. So the point of this question is to realize when I'm working with a couple, working with a family, if alcohol is the issue, I cannot work with the family. Any drugs are going on, we can do family therapy all day long, but if drugs and alcohol are truly the problem, we're all wasting our time. Okay, so that's the point of this question. It's what they're measuring. Do you know that that's a waste of our time? Okay. Emily?
Most of the time, Bob and Carol decide what to serve their children for dinner. Occasionally, however, they will ask their kids for input. About once a month, they rotate, allowing the kids to choose a restaurant for a family meal. This dynamic best represents A, no boundaries, B, rigid boundaries, C, permeable boundaries, or
Permeable.
D, permeable boundaries, or D, diffuse boundaries. So I'm going to take away A, because there are boundaries. They're not showing that there's no boundaries. And I'm going to take away D.
D, dog.
D as in dog.
Okay. Okay. So now you're between B and C.
I think it's C.
Cat?
C as in cat. Yes, cat.
And sometimes you have semi-permeable. That means the same thing. That means that, yes, there are rules, but hey, occasionally we let the kids pick. Okay, diffused boundaries are almost like they don't exist. I think of a diffuser when it puts stuff in the air and just kind of blows away. We don't see them at all. Rigid boundaries are so rigid, mom and dad choose every single time. Okay, so permeable or semi-permeable. That means some things get through, but not everything.
Is there a way to go back so I can finish reading that?
Yeah, of course. The explanation?
Yes.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Of course. Okay. Davida, we're going to you. Triangulation.
Which of the following most accurately describes a potential problematic triangulation within a therapeutic context? A, an individual therapist referring one of his clients to an outside group. B, a family therapist offering individual therapy to one of the clients. C, a couple therapist aligning with one spouse. D, a child therapist organizing a separate session with the parents.
I have to understand what triangulation is.
So triangle is 3 sides, right?
It is.
So I would think describes a potential problematic triangulation. So I would
So
think
triangulation
Mhm.
is when there are two people in a family and a third person is either brought in or does something to take the fighting, to just take away the attention that you two are having, the fighting, the tension. Mom and dad are talking about getting a divorce. Little Bobby starts acting out at school. Because little Bobby knows that that'll take the attention away from mom and dad and they'll focus onto him. Okay, so that's triangulation.
Okay. So the question is asking, I guess, the most problematic of the ones listed. So I would rule out A and D.
Okay.
And I would say C as the answer.
Okay. So we still think about, so any third person that's aligning, right? I come to therapy and you're agreeing with my husband.
Mhm.
And let me say, so in all fields, we can have some bias. So to say that we're unbiased would never be true. We all have bias, okay? But I'm not going to align with either one of them. And also when it says stay neutral, I can't do that either. So I can't align, I can't bound, but I also don't get to stay neutral. I get to still be involved. I can't have this like flat look on my face, like it doesn't matter. Okay, Erica?
The following all represent, you did say Erica.
I did. I think Dee's driving and I like her not to read when she's driving.
The following all represent examples of thinking systematically as a therapist itself. Considering how your feelings about your client coincide with his guarded behavior. Considering how a client's cultural background might influence his career. Considering how your client's family might contribute to his depression. And considering how your client's partner might trigger his anxiety.
Systems theory it talks about the importance of everything being interrelated.
Okay, considering your client's family might, I'm gonna keep C, I'm gonna keep D, keep B, and it's A.
The answer is A. good, very good, very good. Make sense? Okay, okay, so let's do one more. Nah, let's not do that one. Try that one. Dee, are you still driving? No. Back to you, Janetta.
Which of the following examples best illustrates a rigid triangle in a family system? A father who often avoids making parenting decisions about his teenage daughter and defaults to his wife instead. B, a teenage daughter who disobeys her father when he disciplines her but listens attentively to her mother. C, a teenage daughter who strongly prefers her father and confides in him when she needs comfort. Or D, a father who often disagrees with his wife about parenting their teenage daughter. I'm going to eliminate. C. I'm also going to eliminate. I don't know which other one I want to eliminate, but I'm going to pick A.
I got it. That's who's supposed to be in that hierarchy there. So the mom and dad, right?
Right.
Can I read? Sorry, I was just gonna say, can I read the explanation?
Of course you can.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, let's go to groups. Okay, so one of the important things always just to remember is so the group is now my client. Okay, so instead of having, you know, one client or the couple, the group is now my client. Let me just make sure I cover in family sections. Does everybody know who Gottman is?
I've heard of like
so
couples therapy.
He's the couples therapist, Gottman, and he's on the test usually. The Gottman is the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. I strongly suggest that you read this book if you're in a relationship, if you plan on being in a relationship. And it's just a really good book for couples, and it really just talks about how to fight and how to fight fair. But you definitely might see some questions on Gottman. Okay, am I sharing my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so the 4 horsemen, the downfall of the marriage: criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. What Gottman teaches us is just to fight and fight fairly. That couples have conflict. That's just it. We do. So instead of doing criticism, what you should do is a gentle follow-up, like using I statements. So criticism is, you know what, when you changed the baby last night, you didn't wipe his bottom enough, right? Just criticizing the behavior. So a better way is an I statement, right? I statements are when I talk about how your behavior makes me feel. Right? I am upset when you don't change the baby, when you don't wipe the baby's bottom well. I'm concerned about the baby getting diaper rash. When you come home late for dinner, I worry about you. Right? Contempt is not only can I not stand you, but I can't stand their mother, your great-grandmother, and everybody else. So contempt is not only did you not wash the dishes last night, you also sucked in bed. We're just taking that knife and just sticking it in and turning it like, oh. So contempt is usually the a indicator of a much deeper issue. If I've got contempt for my spouse, so contempt is attacking the sense of self with intent to insult or abuse, purposely trying to hurt him or her. Okay. The goal is to build an appreciation of the culture of appreciation. Learn to look at the positive qualities of your spouse. Defensiveness, wasn't me. Only talk about wasn't me. Okay, take ownership. It was you. You left the toilet seat up. Wasn't me, it was you. And the last one is stonewalling. Stonewalling is avoiding the conversation altogether. Okay, so we're just not going to talk about it. And of course, we're not going to do that. So it says physiological self-soothing. So physiological means also just physical. So you know what, it's okay to call a timeout and just walk away. Okay, just say, hey, I can't do this right now. Let's come back and do it again. So this is Gottman, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Okay, and that is something that's almost always on the test, getting one of those questions. Okay, so make sure I covered that. Going back to the box. Okay, so then I was going to go to groups next. So what I was starting to say is we really look at, am I sharing my screen?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. So when it comes to groups, remembering that the entire group now is your client. Okay, so everything that is said in group stays in group, except for if there's abuse going on. If someone tells me something in group that you know, they're being abused, they have abused somebody else, and I need to report that, and that's something I'm going to take outside a group and just, you know, call them after and say, hey, you know what? Okay, so this is what I need to talk about her. I'm going to have to report this. I've seen a question also about a client in a situation where you thought the client was on drugs. You weren't sure, you thought they were on drugs, and it wasn't a drug group. And the answer to that one was also to talk to the client outside of group. Just because there was not a reason necessarily to call him out if that wasn't the case and it wasn't a drug group. Okay. Other than that, the goal is it stays in group. Okay, so when it comes to you after group and they say, oh my gosh, I can't see, can you believe Mary said that this week? Or it hurt my feelings when Bob said that, I'm going to say to her, well, bring it up next week in group. Okay. So the benefits of group, the goal is for it to be, it's a microcosm of the real world, a smaller version of what the real world looks like. So homogeneous groups, we'll get into that. Homogeneous groups, they're the ones that they look alike and sound alike, right? Okay, so in homogeneous groups, it's not a microcosm of the real world, is it? Everybody in the real world doesn't look and sound like you. So heterogeneous groups do a lot better, just because those are the ones that are more like what groups look like. So again, so acquisition of knowledge within a social framework, I'm receiving and offering social support, introduction to alternative behaviors, I'm learning new things, and a group is a great place to go and act them out, my new behaviors. Learning group standards, efficient addressing of any counselor bias. So in group, again, counselors have bias. So, right, so that especially in a group of other people, they may be very clear to me as a counselor. A secure environment to hone new abilities, and it is cost effective, and that's a good question. That's a good answer. It's not a bad thing. It's a cost effective. You make more money in a group setting, and insurances would rather prefer to pay you that. So if you're charging $75 an hour and there are 8 people, $75 for 90 minutes, and there are 8 people in the group, right? So insurance companies would much rather pay you that than pay for that individual rate, right? So the issue most often is when it comes down to those stages of group, and of course the type of groups. A guidance group is only done in schools. Okay, for the test, only done in schools. A counseling group, right, can be anytime I'm doing any counseling, but if you have a diagnosis for the test, it's a psychotherapy group. Psychotherapy groups are most often the ones you're going to see in hospital settings, residential facilities, things like that. You know, when you're in the psych ward and everybody has to go to group. So that's most often what you're looking for. in a psychoeducational group, I am teaching something that I know. Okay, I'm not going to do a psychoeducational group on the side effects of diabetes. That is out of my realm. That might be a nursing psychoeducational group, but I definitely can do a group of parents on the effects of the symptoms of ADD. Right? I can definitely do things like that. Things that are in my realm. So preventative, growth-centric, remedial are found everywhere. Social service agencies, mental health facilities, academic institutions, etc. Psychoeducational groups. I'm teaching you something. Okay. Self-help groups, what makes them so special is what? AA is a self-help group. How is that different than others? There's not a go ahead.
No, I was going to say, would it kind of be more client-led?
Yes, absolutely. There's not a professional leader. The person who's leading the group is not a professional. So AA is going to be ran by, they're called the key holder, the person who's been the cleanest the longest. Okay, so they're not a professional. So while it says weight management, so if I'm doing like an OA group, an Overeaters Anonymous, that is not going to be led by a professional, right? It's going to be the person, again, who's been doing it the longest. But if I'm doing a Weight Watchers group, that's a paid professional. So a self-help group, the leader is not a paid professional. Okay. So then T groups are training groups. Used to be a long time ago before COVID. We'd kind of go away, right? You get to go a Friday retreat and you did like the ropes course and some training courses, and you got to go outdoors and meet people. I haven't seen those in a long time, but those are training groups. Most often you're working on like team building exercises or some bonding stuff. Task groups are going to be something most often you'll see for the worker, not necessarily for the group members. Task group is, you come up with this brilliant idea. I really think that, we should really start sending the clients, reminder cards, or maybe we should give them follow-up phone calls after the session. And your boss says, it's a great idea. Won't you and your couple of your coworkers come up with that plan? Very specific task you have to do. Okay. The other group you might see on there is going to be then an encounter group. An encounter group, we don't see those a lot anymore, but way back in the day, Tony Robinson, you'd have this encounter like in the middle of the woods, and you go run through coals in a hot tent, and there'd be 1,000 people there. Haven't seen those in a long time, but those are encounter groups. Okay, so that's what we're looking for, the types of groups. Remember also, when it comes to groups, there are structured groups and groups that are non-structured. But any kind of group can be either. Okay, so an AA group can be structured or it can be unstructured. It can be ran by a professional and still be unstructured. So don't assume it's because it's a certain type of group that it's structured, right? But most groups should have a beginning, middle, and end. Most therapy sessions should have a beginning, middle, and end, right? When a client comes in, you start with the greeting, how are you? You get to the meat, and then you do the summarization. Same thing with any kind of group setting. So when it comes to group, the dynamics are the stages. The forming, storming, norming, right? The performing, and then it's over. A product group may not go through those stages. The content is what I'm teaching you, what you need to learn. Okay, so let's say it's a drug and alcohol group. So if it is a support group, right, and you are mandated to go through this group not a support group, but you're mandated to go through this group because you've got a DUI. Right, the content is still drug and alcohol, right? But it's a product group, not a process group. The goal is most often psychoeducational. You're going to sit there and you're going to watch those videos on the car crashes and look at all the bloody crashes, and you get a certificate at the end. That is a product group. Okay, the process group is what we want to go through. So the content is what we learn. If we can learn that in either place, right? The process is how we learn it. The group dynamics are going to be the stages that we go through. So the goal of group is going from being very much the group of a process group is going very much from being leader led to client led. Right? Those first stages of orientation or forming, that first week you just look at me and you just wait for me to answer. Oh, you're just looking at me and like, Dr. Pam, Dr. Pam, Dr. Pam, Dr. Pam. You're not talking to each other. You're afraid to look around the room. That's those first stages, right? And then we get to know each other. So whatever theory we use, we're going to go to that conflict stage. Some of those theories. So no matter which theory we use, we're going to go through the stages. So if we look at Corey and Corey, pre-group, initial group, transition, working, final stage. Okay, so those are Corey, and Corey. So Corey, the pre-group, of course, was before he did a pre-screening. The initial stage would be the same as the forming if we're looking at Tuckman, because Tuckman did not believe in doing a pre-group. The transition is the same as the working. I'm sorry, wow. The transition is the same as the storming or the conflict group. Okay, the working stage, according to Corey, is the same as the performing or the cohesiveness, and then it's over. Okay. So no matter what theory we use, is there a question?
Yes, I just, so the exam is going to use either sets of terms
Oh,
to
it'll
discuss
use,
group phases.
yes, it will. It'll give you, so you'll have to know what happens in which of which. Okay. So, so I used to just, I really should just used to teach Tuckman, because Tuckman is the one that most of us use, and well, not most of us, but Tuckman is the one that most of us have learned. And then I always assumed that you could kind of pick it up if you knew one of them, that you could know all of them. But that's not really the case, I found, for a lot of my students. So Tuckman's. Those are Tuckman stages of development. So forming, storming, norming, performing, and then it's over. Okay. So if we compare those, then, so these are the ones that belong to Corey, and Corey, and they've written every book. Corey and Corey and Corey and Corey and Corey and Corey. So those are their stages. So the American Association of Group Workers suggests that we should do a orientation or a pre-screening. Tuckman did not agree with that. Okay, so Tuckman said no, that we just do it when we first get there. Corey and the others did say that yes, we should. Okay, and then Yalom is the other one. Yalom is really not known a lot for his stages. He is known more for his curative factors, but he had 4 stages also, which line up a lot with. Yalem's line up very much so with Tuckman's. So Yalom said, orientation, conflict, cohesion, and termination. But we're really not known for a lot of Yalem's group theories. We're known more for his importance of the curative factors. But he did have 4 stages. Okay. So the main one I always teach is forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. So forming, or if we go down and we look at the initial stage, or if we look at orientation, is what he called it. Remember that I make the rules. I set the rules, okay? However, the norms are set by the group. So the rules are, we don't hit each other. We don't throw chairs. We don't call each other names. The norms are what's set by the group. So understand they're not the same. Okay. The norms are that Pamela usually makes the coffee. Barbara comes in, and no matter whatever conversation's going on, Barbara has something to say. Every group has their own norm, what's normal for that group. That is where the cohesiveness begins. The tightness of the group begins when you set your own norms. Okay. So then in every group, there's going to be a conflict stage. So people are jockeying for positions, trying to decide who's going to sit where, who's going to do this. I make the coffee. I want to be the person that hands it out. I want to do this. I want to do that. After a couple of weeks, it begins to narrow out, mellow out, and then that's when we get to that comfortable stage. Okay. So the initial stage, so according to, so Corey is the only one that has a pre-group. Everybody else starts off with that initial stage or orientation. Right? Conflict, transition, storming, all mean the same thing. We're jockeying for positions. The working stage, the performing stage, and then Corey would say the cohesion stage. That's when the healing begins to happen. That's when I've let my guard down, and now I'm going to tell you things about myself that I would never tell you before. On day 1 of group, if I tell you, you know what, that, you know, I'm an axe murderer, or yeah, I've had 5 abortions, you're going to look at me like, what? But now that we trust each other, I can tell you that, and you not look at me sideways. In the tightness of a group, things that are really cohesive, we could actually disagree on the president and not fight. Right? We really belong to respect each other. I know you. I know who you are. I've sat beside you for 12 weeks, and I trust you. I've let my guard down. I've let you in my life. I've told you those things about me I would never have told you in the beginning. And then it's over. Okay, so in the stages, so again, it's very much leader led. In that first stage, we're looking at like, hey, talking to me, talking to me, talking to me. The conflict stage again. So in the conflict stage, it'll pass. It'll just pass. You've never been a drug user. Why are you leading this group? Why don't we let her in? She's an old lady. She can't possibly know what it's like to be me. Why is he in this group?
And
That's all part of it.
the conflict
Go ahead.
stage, the second stage, and the storming stage.
The conflict is going to be the second stage. So it's going to be either conflict, storming, or transitioning. Okay, so in Corey's, it would be the third stage, right? Because he has that pre-group. Right, but that's still all the same thing. They're questioning they're questioning each other. Why did we get her in? Blah, blah. She does this every week, blah, blah, blah. That's when I'm going to, again, take it back to the group. It stays in group. We're going to discuss it in group. So at the working stage or the
Did it
cohesion
freeze for y'all?
stage, I'm sorry. Repeat.
I think she froze.
Me?
No, Janetta. Oh, there she go.
Moving on.
I'm sorry, I froze.
Okay. Okay. So in the working stage or the norming stage, at that point, I just get to sit back and do nothing. I'm sorry. The performing, the orientation, or performing, cohesion, and working is when I get to sit back. Bob, what do you think about what Mary said? Mary, what do you think about what Barbara said? That's called linking. In that stage of the group, they could care less if I showed up or not. So in groups, and it talks about if I replace the group leader, at that point, the group is not about me. They're going to do whatever they need to do, whether I'm there or not. So if I need to leave in that stage, they'll replace the new leader. They won't even care because they're so tight at that point, they could care less. Okay, and then it's over. Okay, so every group gets to that stage. Well, not every group gets there. Not every group gets to cohesion. Not every group gets to performing. But there are some groups that get there quickly. Okay, so can groups the stages be shortened or made longer? Of course they can. Depends on the people. In an open group, you can get to cohesiveness, you can get to performing like we're good, and a new person comes in and you're all the way back down to storming. In a closed group, it's very rare that would happen, right? Because we know each other and we're tight with each other. So we're going to be able to disagree. But in an open group, definitely as people come and go, we can definitely go back to those stages. And yes, you have to know because it'll tell you something that's going on and it'll give you like all three of these terms, all three of the theorists. So you have to know who said what. Okay. Okay. But the only one, and the American Association of Group Workers does say that you should do that screening, but the only one that really does is Corey, and Corey. Okay. Makes sense? Okay. So what Yalom is mainly known for is his curative factors. Okay. Yalom was also considered to be a existentialist. So that means that he really looked at why are we here? What is our reason for being here? So again, the essence of group cohesion. So cohesion isn't inherent. It blossoms when members willingly embrace vulnerability through acts such as self-disclosure, lowering their guard, and pledging commitment to fellow members. The blinding force propels the group toward efficient collaboration. When I've been sitting beside you for 8, 9, 10 weeks, I've learned that your behavior is consistent. I can trust you. Okay? shared attributes among members. So attributes are the characteristics, right? External challenges or threats often fortify the group's unity. My wife said I shouldn't be trusting you guys, right? I'm gonna trust you even more. So outside stuff, external chapters, external forces often makes us need each other more. And that's the goal of the group. The healing happens in the process. It's almost like magic. So the roles in the group, so these are the roles that we'll see of there are lots of other roles that you'll see sometimes also. For the test, I haven't seen all those roles that you see in like the 750 book. I haven't seen those on the test. You do know the blocking role. So if the client is playing the blocking role, that's a problem. That means they're not ready to go on. That means that whatever, you know, if it's Barbara's turn to speak and someone is blocking Barbara from speaking, or it's time to go on to the next subject and they don't want the next person to speak, that's often seen as resistance. So if the client is doing the blocking role, that's a problem. Okay. If I'm doing the blocking as the leader, that's okay. You know what, Dee, if you would just, you should just give Barbara a chance to talk. I'd really appreciate that, you know, just shh. I had a group session, a very large group of counselors. And I had to tell her, okay, you cannot speak for the next 15 minutes. It's just before it even started, she was, and it's great, but there were 40 other people in the group. 40 other people need to get their share too. So at some point I said to her, you cannot say anything for 15 minutes, just 15 minutes. So the blocking role is because everybody needs to get something, or I'll say anybody but her can answer the question, right? So especially in a group setting, right? Because you have to, as a leader, I'm trying to make sure everyone gets their turn to speak. And there's some people that are just going to be less, just not talk as much, right? That's just their personality.
So what was her response?
She was okay. I said, your time's not up yet, babe. Sorry, time's not up. Okay. It's not the first time with counselors. Your personality is your personality, whether you're a counselor or anything else. And that person is probably in an individual session because you don't get to talk the whole time in a group setting. I'm sorry. Okay. So yes, but that's the blocking role. That's part of what you do. And again, no matter what kind of group setting it is, right? It's not fair for one person to get to talk the whole time. Even in my staff meetings with my staff, I have to go down the list and I will say, it's your turn to speak. And I have to, shh, nope, it's his turn. It's his turn. It's his turn. Okay, because if not, there's some people that just won't say anything unless I specifically ask them. Okay. So that's one of the group questions. So just because I am verbal in group doesn't mean I'm getting more out of it than someone who is less verbal. The commitment is where I learned that I'm there every week and I take in things. But there are people who talk, but that doesn't mean they're benefiting more from group than other people. Okay, it's your commitment to group, not the fact that you're always verbal. Okay, the facilitating, the building role, that's the person who's trying to foster a sense of belonging. And then the maintenance role, that's the person who's trying to make sure that everything stays in routine. So you'll see those in like AA groups. If one of your mean teachers made you go and someone made sure that you signed in and showed you where the coffee was and, you know, got just all the brochures that you needed. So this is the way that group runs all the time. This is the way we're going to do it. Okay. Remember with those roles, no one chooses those. I mean, no one is assigned those roles. You choose those roles. Right. And they can change. Today I can decide that I'm going to be the maintenance person and next time I'm going to be the blocker. Okay. The more the group norms, the less you'll see those roles. Okay, so, and we won't see, you know, people fighting for the role. But Bob is the one that comes in every week and he sets up the chairs and he cleans up the chairs every week, and we're okay with that. Okay, but the blocking role specifically in the client and with a client is most often some sort of resistance. They're not ready to go on, or they're trying to stop somebody else from going. Okay. The leadership roles in group, you'll see this very much also in how you run an office. Okay, the autocratic or the authoritarian style, the democratic or the laissez-faire. Remember, the laissez-faire, it doesn't mean that they don't know how to run the group. What it means is that the group is able to run and do what it's supposed to do without me always having my thumb on top of it. So a laissez-faire leader, right, trusts that their employees do what they're going to do. I don't have to be on top of you every single time. So what literally translates to fairly lazy, don't think that I don't know how to stand up and do it. It just means I don't have to. Okay, but if a fight breaks out in group, the laissez-faire leader can stop it the same way that anybody else can. So leaders adopt a hands-off approach, granting members the authority to act as they see fit. The style often produces optimal outcomes with a shared objective unites the group. So if I just kind of sit back and let it happen, so that usually helps the cohesiveness, the tightness happen quicker. Now, the authoritarian style does have its place in group. So I mentioned before when there was a product group, you have 6 weeks to try to get your baby back. Right? We are doing parenting lessons, parenting tips, and you are court ordered. So the authoritarian leader is the one that is doing that education to make sure that he has taught you those 12 modules. Okay, those are not known for being the process groups. I actually got in trouble for that one time. I was doing a not trouble, but we had a disagreement over group leadership style. So I was doing court mandated people that had been out of prison and they had to come see me. They were so happy to see me all the time, right? They just got out of prison. And one of the probation officers did not like the way that I ran group. I stuck with the lessons that were in the book. I taught the lessons, but I taught it the way that I run group, right? Very involved. So what do you think? You know, and I made them do like warm-up activities and share how their day was. And she reported to the court that my groups I was not teaching them. So I explained to the judge, just because I was not a teacher and we're not reading page by page, right? There was no reason to be authoritarian. And one of the things in that group, really, I had to teach social skills. I had to teach the men coming out of prison that were in this huge classroom not to sit side by side 3 men in a row. Because they'd been in prison, right? And in prison, that's you know, at Shout, you sit like this. Just say to them, you know, if you go to the movie theater and sit like that, people are gonna think you're gay, was part of what I was teaching them. And that definitely wasn't part of the lesson, but those were the social skills that they needed because they'd been in prison. So I was not an authoritarian leader, and that's what the probation officer felt that they needed. And no, they can learn the same thing. Okay. And that was just the style that I chose to use. Okay, but it was 12 weeks. They had the lessons they had to learn for 12 weeks. We went through the book for 12 weeks, did exactly what we were supposed to do for 12 weeks. That democratic style is more the way that I read it. I wanted input. I wanted them to talk to me. Right? I didn't want them to just check off the yes or no in the box. I really wanted them to just talk to me and be part of the group and maybe actually learn something as opposed to just show up and, you know, get their certificate. And the laissez-faire, of course, again, that's the one that's laid back. But as a rule for the test, when we have a product group, which is usually a very behaviorally ran group with rewards and consequences, then that is what we're looking for, especially in those court-ordered groups. Okay, so those are the leadership styles, and they all have their place. Right. as I mentioned before, in group, right, there needs to be the warm up, the action, and the closure, whether that's an individual or whether that is the in a group session, right? They all still need to be in there. So then the essential rules for learning. Okay, so then these are the same things that you'll see whether it's an individual session, whether it's a group section. Okay. So then active listening. Remember, active listening doesn't, I don't have to say anything. Okay. Active listening literally is that I am making eye contact with you and you know that I'm listening. There's something about my body language that you know that I'm listening to you. So sometimes we call all of these skills active listening skills, but remember, it really does, you don't have to say anything for active listening. Right? So reflection, what makes that one so special?
You're repeating back what the client has said to you, which lets them know you're listening.
You're missing something. Reflection includes feelings.
Oh.
Okay. Reflection always includes feelings. Sometimes the words that the people didn't say. Okay. Or the words they did say and didn't have the right words. You know, the guy comes in and he slams the chair and he sits down. You know what? And I might say, wow, so slamming the chair tells me that you're angry, but maybe you're just really disappointed. Okay? Maybe you're sad. So a lot of our clients just don't have the words for the feelings. So whether it's an individual, a family, or a group, reflection always includes the feelings. If I just say back what they said to me, that's paraphrasing. That's how you got through college, right? You change every fifth word so it didn't get caught in the plagiarism act. Okay, so clarify. Okay, no, not you, but 6 words. But anyway, so that's what we're doing, right? We're making sure that we are clarifying, or make sure that we are using the feelings in reflection. Okay. Clarifying, give me an example, somebody.
Making sure that you understand what the client has told you. So you may say, just to clarify, you said that you weren't eating.
Okay. I think about words that my teenagers use that I don't often understand. So I want to, what? Right? So I can clarify at any time. I don't want to go through, a whole 50-minute session and I'm thinking that, they're out there making bread when they really are, making money. They're getting the bread, making it dough. Okay, so what's the song? What's the song? Poppin' Tags? That's the word, Poppin' Tags. What was that song?
Yes.
What does that mean?
Going shopping and popping tags, purchasing things.
I thought it meant stealing. Okay, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what it meant. So, okay.
I know it's short, so you pop the tag.
Oh, so I know that now, but I don't want to spend a whole conversation with somebody. I'm thinking they're stealing. What do you mean? So, okay, I'm old. That's clarification. Like my kid. What? So that's clarification because you just have no idea what they're talking about. Okay, you'll get old too, and the language will change. Just warning you now. So you may get it now. You won't always.
It's already there at school.
So that's when you use the Urban Dictionary. That's always. You can go there and you can always look up whatever the term is going on. Okay, but that's clarifying, right? So I want to make sure that we understand we're on the same page. What else do you not understand on that list?
I had a question between
Okay.
clarifying and questioning.
Okay.
So they seem to be the same to me.
Okay. So one of the things is we don't usually ask the why question. Okay. But I can say, I don't understand. Okay. Give me more. So clarification in a question will say something like, it'll say me repeating back. So I understand, now I understand that you weren't really stealing clothes, you were shopping. That's clarification. So when I'm trying to question, so I'm hearing that you didn't have any money, but you were shopping anyway.
Okay. So one is more a statement versus
more
a
is
question.
the questioning is looking for deeper understanding. Clarification is I'm making sure that we're on the same page.
That I'm understanding
I
what you're saying.
understand what you told me.
Okay.
Understanding is like underneath that.
Okay.
Okay. Interpreting is the same thing as relabeling or reframing. Relabeling belongs to strategic family therapy. Reframing belongs to structural. They all mean the same thing. I'm trying to interpret it, and most often help you look at it in a more positive way, putting a little more positive spin on it. So he's doing that because he loves you, right? So I'm trying to get them to look at it a different way. Relabeling, because strategic talks about how we talk to each other, and reframing talks about the structure of families, but they also mean the exact same thing. Linking, that's what we do in group, right? So Barbara, you and Bob have the same issue, maybe you want to talk about it. Remember, I want them to talk about it inside of group, not outside of group. The only one that you're really going to see different, I think, is linking, because in an individual session, you're not linking anybody individually. Other than that, those are any other terms. Okay. Right. Of course, the basics of, knowing anything else, so make sure that you have you understand your theoretical orientation, right? Know how group dynamics work. Linking and blocking are terms that we need this therapist. Okay. Universality in groups is a good thing. Okay. Intellectualization, that's usually a defense mechanism. But what we know is that with male groups especially, they stay on the intellectual level and don't often get to the feelings level. Okay, that's pretty common. They just stay on the intellectual level and not get to the feelings level, right? They'll discuss baseball and they'll pop each other with a towel instead of saying, I love you, man. Right? Okay, so scapegoating, of course, we're blaming that one person in group for all of our problems. Okay. So in scapegoating, remember that we the person that is doing is allowing themselves to be the scapegoat. They have to have low self-esteem. Who else would let the entire group beat up on them? Okay, it's when one group member becomes a target for collective blame or negative attention. In this dynamic, multiple members unite in directing their frustrations or criticism toward a single individual, offer deflecting attention from broader issues or their responsibilities. You know what? I can't stand Dr. Pam shows up every week late. I would pass this test if she'd show up on time. If she would just get here 5 minutes earlier, I swear I'd pass this test. Dr. Pam's gonna say, screw y'all, isn't that my problem? but the scapegoat would take it. So in the group setting, they're going to take it. So what does that say about the scapegoat? And in a good therapist would not allow that to happen, right? We're not going to let someone beat up on you. Okay. Resistance, right? Resistance is resistance no matter how we see it. Okay. Co-leaders, right? So we want to be the close or the same theoretical orientation. That means CBT and REBT, CBT and DBT, CBT and behaviorist. Okay. But I don't want a Freudian with the behaviorist. One of us is trying to get underneath and look at all your stuff going on, and the other one is just trying to change your behavior. So I need to be on similar orientations. It also works really, really well if we like each other. Okay. So then, again, dual perspective. It's great if it's a male and a female. And it's really okay if we disagree on how to handle it. Now, we don't want to have a knockdown drag out, but it's nice for clients to be able to see two adults who just have different opinions. Okay. Role modeling, mutual feedback, diverse reactions, harmonious relationship. It's nice if we like each other. The power dynamics, right? We shouldn't be, fighting for power between my leader and my co-leader. Okay, mentoring opportunities, especially if someone is new coming in. It's nice to be in a group with someone who's been doing it for a while. Okay. We talked about homo versus heterogeneous. Remember, homo is homosexuality. So I like the people that look and sound like me. Hetero, I like the people that don't look and sound like me, that have a different than I have. Heterogeneous groups may pose a difference initially. Okay, but really what we know is that it's more like the microcosm of the real world. Right? Open versus closed group, what's that?
One of the groups, the open group, is continuously open so people can come and go. Where our closed group is more on a time schedule. It's closed, you can't come and go.
Got it. So those AA groups that your mean teacher made you go to, so why was there a closed group? What did it mean in AA? What did it look like in an AA group?
Oh, I would say you had to have the same issue. It was close to.
So AA groups are usually working on 12 steps, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm not letting you in that group, what would be a reason for that?
Because you're probably in like step 5.
Okay. Because if the group starts, right? So if the group starts, right? So our goal is to get through the 12 steps. Okay. Groups 4 and 5 are the hardest ones. Group 4, I'm acknowledging to myself all of my wrongdoings. Okay. Now, I wasn't the drug and alcohol addict, but I got a list of wrongdoings. It's about this long. Okay. So we don't want someone who just wants to be clean coming in to a group that is already being clean, and I'm sharing my stuff with you. So the group is that group is going to be closed until we get through those 12 steps. An open group, right, just means that you can come in. All you have to do is want to be clean, right? Okay. I'm just putting this in here. bothers you? Remember, when it comes to groups, right, we still have those lovely ethical principles. Can I make anyone promise they won't say anything?
No.
You got a magic wand? Okay, can't promise you that. I can ask them not to, right? That's the goal of the group, is we talk about, you know, it is a private group, you know, what's said in group stays in group, but I need to let all my clients know I don't have a magic wand. I have yet to be able to, you know, make people behave a certain way. So those curative factors, am I sharing my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So those are the ones that you'll see, and we really need to make sure that we understand those curative factors. Okay. So which of these do you not know?
I'm gonna have to refresh on all of them, to be honest.
Okay. So altruism is when you do something without expecting anything in return. Altruism is very common in AA groups. So what happens is people who've been clean forever will come back and share their story. Okay, it literally means that that for AA, it's part of the group of AA. It's part of the rules. We're going to come back and bring someone else over with us. Okay, but in general, that is just what happens in AA group. Well, I'm trying to close some windows out, guys. If I lose you, I just you still see me and hear me?
Yes.
Screaming it. Okay. So universality, again, in group, it's an okay thing. Universality lets me know that I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one whose husband died. I'm not the only one who's trying to raise their children by themselves. I'm not the only one that's an alcoholic. Remember, INTER, interpersonal learning, means learning with other people. INTER always means with other people. Right? INTRA is inside of me. Intra is most often a Freudian question. Freud talks about INTRA. Okay. Then INTER, interpersonal, is the same as a multidiscipline group. So interdiscipline and multidiscipline mean the exact same thing. Okay. What are socialization techniques? Anybody?
Are you asking for like an example of one?
Yeah, please.
Like as a school counselor, I do like speed dating, but I call it friendship dating.
Okay. So what are they learning?
Well, I make sure that I separate them from their normal group so they learn how to interact with others that they wouldn't normally, and how to, you know, introduce themselves and step out of the box, and they're
Very
comfortable.
good. Very good. Very good. So socialization is many times learning please and thank you. Right? If I grew up in a home where I've never seen, you know, social skills, right? Waiting my turn to speak. Oh my gosh, letting the lady have the chair. What? Right? If I've opened the door, if those are things that I've never seen in a group setting, those are things that I can learn. Okay. And I can learn them by watching others, right? Or definitely even just, you know, by someone saying to me, shh, we don't talk when other people are talking. Okay, because remember, group is supposed to be a microcosm of the real world. So especially with, again, I talked about my men from that had just gotten out of prison, they really had to go back and relearn non-prison social skills. Okay, so in the outside world, this is not how we behave. Okay. Imitative behavior, again, we learned by imitating others. Group cohesion, learning to just to trust each other and to be tight. Catharsis is what? It's a Freudian term. What does it mean? That emotional release. The cry, the pent-up emotions, happiness, sadness, whatever, that had become released. That's catharsis or cathartic event. Okay. Corrective recapitulation of the primary family group. I am fixing stuff in my family, fixing stuff in group based on what happens in my family. So someone in the group reminds me of my dad that I never spoke to. He stopped speaking to me. And I'm able then to fix that via transference in the group setting. And remember, you can have multiple transferences in group. Okay, because especially when you get to cohesiveness, and all of us are really at the same place, that you can remind me of my uncle, you can remind me of my dad, you can remind me of my mom, etc. So multiple transferences can happen in group. Installation of hope, that's one of the reasons that people come to group. You know, Bob comes back and says, you know, oh my gosh, and even like in my groups, in my when I did my weekend groups, and people come back and you know, share how they passed, or on my Facebook page, and they say, you know, I took the test 4 times and I really thought I would never ever pass. So that's what we're trying to do, is instill hope, right? You can do this. If they can do it, do it. And like I said, that Yalom is an existentialist. So who's my other existentialist? Talked about theories.
Crystal?
He's more of an experientialist.
Oh.
With Pearls, is he
That's
existential?
the same thing. That's Fritz Perls and Gestalt's the same thing. Existentialism, why do I exist? Why am I here?
Frankel.
That's
Thank you, Frankel, Viktor Frankl, Yalo May. So Rollo May and Viktor Frankl. Why do I exist? What is my purpose? Yalom is also an existentialist. So group discussions can address existential concerns. What is my purpose in life? I got out of jail now and I'm trying to figure out what to do with the rest of my life. He talked about isolation, meaning, mortality, all of those things that an existentialist would talk about. So why am I here? What is my purpose? Okay. So that's what it talks about, those curative factors. Okay. So he believed while the elements are present and nurtured, they significantly enhance the group's participation. Right. So those are the really important understanding of my theorists, the main theorists. Okay. So your assignment, of course, is to go back and to go over. Okay. So we went over, and I'll put this one in your chat box. Okay. So we went over one, like what is group? Okay, what happened to? There we go. Benefits of group, the objectives of group counseling, the classifications of groups, the type of groups there are. Okay. So we went all the way up into so we at 18 go over again. Okay. 20 are the stages of group and the people, and 21 are my curative factors. Okay, so that's where we should be for next week. I'm going to go ahead and put some flashcards in there as well, some group flashcards. Okay,
This
it gets
peer
harder.
our book or peer the document you're about to send us?
A second.
Is that number peer our book or peer the document
I'm
you're
going to
about?
give you this new document, okay, as opposed to the book. I'm going to give you my new document. Okay. So then the goal is that, remember, we can't lose what we've learned already though. Okay, so theorists, family theorists, group theorists, because you're going to see what other than Yalom, what would an existentialist person look at in a group setting? What would they look at in a family setting? What would they look at? So we've got to just keep adding on and adding on and adding on. Okay, exciting, right? Yes, so good. The key is consistency though, over and over and over again. Watch these videos, watch any other video, but these I'm giving you really enough just to go over and over and over and over and over again. Okay, so it should stick. So, okay. And so when you said Gestalt, he is most often considered an experientialist therapy. Okay, because he did an experiment. So when it comes to Whitaker, he's my experimental family therapist. He actually lived with you, right? Because he wanted to experience what it was like to be a part of your family. And Fritz Perls' Gestalt made you talk to the empty chair. That was an experiment or experience, not why do I exist, which is different. Okay, which I know sound very similar, but very different theories. Okay, questions? Okay, remind me next week, we're gonna we'll finish the rest of those and also go through some group questions so you can see what this content looks like in a question. Okay, we've got to learn the content, but also learn how to apply it to the question, because I can learn all day and then I get to the question and it doesn't say the exact words I wanted them to say and I'm lost. Okay.
So next week we finish in group and then we're gonna go with some group questions.
Yes. We good? Okie dokie. Hope you guys get a time to meet this week, okay? Because we really got to get these theorists, family theorists, group therapists down so we can keep going on. Okay?
Yes.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.